we're good to go. Episode 5 now of the Control Alt Teach podcast. How are you, Matthew? Back again?
Good. I'm confused with the numbering because we recorded one that can't come out for a while, and I thought that was I think we've not lost track of numbering because we're in the hundreds, but it's nice to be losing track there.
I know it is. I thought that's why I stuck with the number, because the episode that you are talking about, you will know because I numbered it something very different when we start. So when it comes out and you hear it, for anyone listening, you will know the difference and know the episode we're talking about. But this definitely will be out before that one, because this one is going out pretty much straight away, because it coincides with a fantastic little festival that's going on, which we are going to come on to. Now, you'll notice I am in a different location this week. I have been stuck and caught at school. So we're well into rugby season at the moment. So I have got in the background our YouTube page. For anyone that doesn't know, if you're a listener or a lurker watching without no video, there is a video available on YouTube if you want to watch us on there one evening, or you can listen to us in your car on the drive on all Apple Podcasts. But yes, so if you are watching, you'll see I'm somewhere different because I've just finished a rugby fixture with our Year 7s. They've just won against the local team. Not the rival's closer, but these guys are only about 15 minutes out from us. So a fantastic little win for my Year 7 team. Over the moon. How about you? How's your week? Been up to much?
It's been all right. Just busy as usual, but it's Thursday night, so Friday's in the sights. So yeah, a couple more classes tomorrow. Again, it's that time of year. Sick teachers creeping in, doing lots of cover, bouncing around. It's just October in a school, isn't it?
The start of fall. Summer sun is over. This is when, as a PE teacher as well, particularly the joggers start getting swept out from the bottom of the drawers, getting ready to come in as the temperature drops. So, however, we are going to introduce our lovely guest, because with October and fall comes obviously all the start of the big kind of festivals and EdTech conferences and so on. And so we do have, on that vein, a recognised leader in tech, but not a way you might expect to. We normally talk with teachers. He is a leader in the North. He's a business consultant and trade delegate to South Asia, which we'll kind of ask about and we'll touch on. But he is an exhibition extraordinaire who started with the Digital City Festival in Manchester, but is currently the festival director for Brilliant, the Brilliant Festival in Liverpool, which is happening literally in a week's time on Tuesday. It is coming up very, very soon, which we've got on. So we'd like to welcome onto the pod Martyn Collins. Hello, sir. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Aaron and Matthew. Very well, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. We're both really excited to have you on. We want to have you on because obviously we're both going to be at your festival. We are going to be there. We're going to be talking, exhibiting, and sort of spreading the good love of EdTech, I suppose, and all of that goodness. So we are going to come onto it and we'll talk a lot more about it. But for those who don't know, you can explain a little bit about sort of your background and where you come from, because you're sort of more from industry than you are the education side.
Yeah, I mean, I do tell people that I started in education, but then we all did because I was only 5 at the time. But entered the world of work not knowing what I wanted to do, and spent... I still don't know what I want to do, actually. I haven't properly grown up. But since the last 25 years or so, I've been involved in digital and tech, been in the agency world, worked for some big software companies. But the last 10 years, I've really concentrated on putting on large-scale digital and tech exhibitions, primarily in Manchester, and recognising that we've heard about levelling up, which is not a term anymore, but there is a disparity between the amount of events that go on in this country, in London, compared to the rest of the country. And so I was involved in putting on a number of events, and they became, in their own right, this sounds a bit braggy, but they were the biggest events of their type outside of London, for e-commerce, for tech, for digital, for marketing. And what that told me was that there was a real appetite for large-scale events in the North, and that not everyone wanted to hack all the way down to London for events.
And so that all kind of started with Digital City in Manchester. So sort of what does it take to run a festival sort of that size? Like I said, because it's the largest outside of London. How much sort of goes into bringing that to life and sort of scaling it and rerunning it every year?
It's a continuous process. It's one that I probably haven't mastered yet. I'm still learning all the time. And when we talk about brilliant, the education technology landscape has subtle nuances to other tech sectors. But like any good marketing, it's about brand awareness. So the first thing you have to do is get people interested in the event. As I said, in Manchester, putting on digital events, Manchester they calls itself a digital city, so it made sense to create a digital city festival, to have an event that the city could own actually and be part of, without being responsible for it. So we created an event that commercially we looked after, but the city could be proud of and take some ownership of it. And the way they could take ownership of it was we had a week-long series of events. And the cornerstone of that week was a 2-day exhibition at Manchester Central. But at the beginning of the week, we had Andy Burnham, Manchester Mayor, opening the event, and it was in Boohoo's offices. And we had Extinction Rebellion protesting outside, and it started making noise, and but that started a sequence of events over the week, which included a leaders' reception, Cloud 23, and we had Department of Trade and Industry bringing in trade delegations from all across the world to have a look at Manchester and what the digital ecosystem was. I'm going to try and condense all this because a lot happened. We had the 2-day exhibition, we had Digital City Awards, but we also, really importantly, we had about 50 other fringe events happening across the city during that week, put on by partner organisations who were all dealing with their own bit of digital and covering a huge range of subjects. So from whether it's coding or hackathons or wellness or whatever, there was literally something for everyone at a venue across the whole week. But the centre point of it was the exhibition, where we had 6,500 people turn up to hear talks and to network and talk to suppliers and play with technology. And that central piece, the exhibition, that's the bit you've got to get right. You need that space where people can come and they're relaxed, and they're in an environment where they can get inspired, meet colleagues, all the good things that happen in real life. So not like this, we'd be having. This is great, but on a week on Tuesday when we're all in the same room together, there'll be a lot more laughs, and that's what we want. But we're going to have over 1,000 people doing that a week on Tuesday.
Yeah, so that human connection is sort of really important to you, and bringing
100%.
everyone together.
So that was my experience in digital tech, and I moved into education about 1.5 years ago, and for a little while I thought this is a million miles away from what I was doing in digital and tech, and then after about a week I realised actually the two are inextricably linked, and the reasons for that are, one, when I first started putting on exhibitions, a tech company, for instance, would say to me, I'll pay to be at your exhibition if you can make sure that the people who attend that exhibition have got purchasing authority, they've got budget, they're interested in my product. And it was a very binary thing. I'll invest in that if I can make money out of the people who you bring. So it's a real struggle getting. That was a challenge, getting that audience. But over the years, that narrative changed to particularly very big companies saying to me, listen, I'll come to your event, and what I want is the biggest stand right in the middle of the room, because I want every one of those 6,500 people to know that we're the best company to work for, that we've got the best culture, the best opportunities. And what had changed was their need for skills was more important to them than their need to find new customers. So that skills gap was very evident. And then sort of moving into education, what's the primary purpose of education is to prepare children for their futures. And we're looking at an economy now where there's a massive skills gap, and some things need to change to help change that. And Brilliant is asking the questions: is our education system fit for purpose? Are we teaching our kids the skills they need to survive in the new world of work? You get other people saying, well, 80% of the jobs in the future, we don't know what they are yet. But digital is not going to go away. Technology is not going to go away.
Genie's out the lamp now, I think. Yeah.
And so we're now talking about an event that, for the first time, really brings industry into the same room as education, and encourages proper conversation and dialogue between the two, so that industry can say to education, these are the skills we need. This is what we want. These are where our issues are. And we're talking about companies who they do live day to day, but these big companies, engineering companies, for example, they have projects which are going to last 40, 50, 100 years. And they don't have enough engineers to do the job 100% today. And they're looking at a resource which is going to keep shrinking. So it's going to get worse and worse and worse for them. And the other issue that the UK has got, UK PLC, if you like, is that we can't compete on quantity. We're a small country, and there's only so many kids coming through the system. And when you compete against China and India and these massive populations, then their sheer numbers, they're going to have 1,000 more scientists, 1,000 more engineers, probably more than that. So we can't compete with them on quantity. So our challenge is, can we compete with them on quality? Can our education system be better, so that we're innovating more, we're being more entrepreneurial, we're whatever it takes, which all feeds back into that conversation between industry and education.
Because we're going to release this super fast after this episode. So if I'm a teacher or I've come across this online, I'm going to go to Brilliant next week. What am I going to? We've spoken a lot about industry and ed tech. But I've seen from what's been posted online, there's such a broad range of people who are going to be speaking there and exhibiting there. So what are the key kind of flavors that I'm going to get from coming to the event?
Right, great question. So it's I was about to say it's a bit of a sprawling mass, but it's not. It's fairly concentrated. But we've got 4 theatre spaces, and a broad range of topics. It's a steam-powered revolution we're running: the science, technology, engineering, arts, and maths. And we're asking that question. As I said before, are we equipping our kids with the skills they need to survive in the new world of work, against a backdrop of an education system where there aren't enough science teachers, there aren't enough physics teachers, there aren't enough maths teachers. Creativity and arts has been knocked off or knocked to the side of the curriculum, and so we want to bring all these back into play and say, well, what can we do to address the creativity issue, the lack of science teachers, the lack of engineering knowledge. And it's aligned to, how do we inspire our kids to look beyond their norm, what they know from their circumstances, where they're growing up, their influences, is to give every kid the opportunity to understand, no matter where they come from, actually, I could be, everyone says astronaut, but it could be an astronaut or an engineer, or other than maybe thinking, I'll be unemployed like my dad is, or I'll be a hairdresser, or just because they haven't had their eyes open to what possibilities are open to them. And there's some societal stuff there, but schools can do stuff around that, clearly, and industry can as well. So industry can have a more in-depth role in terms of helping inspire young kids. So one of the taglines for Brilliant is early years to careers. So this isn't about fighting for all the best graduates out of university. It's about looking at that long tail and saying, how do we get 5-year-olds to understand that engineering is a cool thing to get into, and it could lead on to all sorts of opportunities. And it's finding ways to inspire them, open their eyes, and the way we do that is the way we can do it is through that connection with industry, but importantly through teachers. So back to your question, Matthew, this is how do we inspire our teachers to talk to their 20, 25, 30 kids in the classroom and get them engaged and heading in a direction that's going to give them a career choice of careers over the lifetime of their working span, and open their eyes, as I said before, to new challenges. And what we're hearing already is that industry aren't necessarily interested in O levels or whatever, but they are interested in kids who love to learn and critical thinking and collaboration and a load of skills that don't sit within a normal day-to-day school curriculum.
So you mentioned there sort of about the tech all coming together, teachers coming together, and industry being able to sort of, like you said, inspire teachers to help them and to help in sort of back and forth as such. So how do you sort of see industry? What role do they play within that? Is it to inspire? Is it to potentially support, or, like you said, provide opportunities? What kind of sort of things or examples do you see that happening where industry can kind of come in and assist with that long tail, like you said, from sort of the early years, primary school through secondary and so on?
So I definitely don't have all the answers. And what brilliant is if you like, it's a platform. It's a platform to bring education, industry, and technology together to have these conversations about what are we doing from early years through to careers, about inspiring the next generation, and what things can be done. And there are things that happen today. There are things like STEM ambassadors, and that's the most obvious example. But that's where industry are placing people into a school for a short while to hopefully inspire kids about what they're doing. It tends to be sort of secondary school and up. There's very little at early years. And there's loads of evidence that says, well, you need to catch them while they're young, because kids have actually started forming opinions about what they're going to do as a career by the time they're sort of 7. So unless you've opened their mind up to other possibilities, they become fixed quite early on in their life, and it becomes harder as they grow older to divert them. So it's definitely asking the questions. There must be other models that work better, and we know about organisations who do support for teachers. So one of them is STEM Live, which is a program run by High Impact, who will be brilliant. And they're science lessons, but they're also like school trips. So that they take cameras and a teacher to places where kids can't go. So, for instance, they went to the Shetland Islands, to Saxevord, to look at the space station. I would say it's space. It's where they launch satellites from. And they spoke to some of the engineers involved in building that. They created a lesson around space flight and fuel and propulsion. And we also had a Q&A they also had a Q&A with Helen Sharman, Britain's first astronaut. And this was relayed to primary schools all across the world, actually, but mainly in the UK. A curriculum-aligned lesson which showed kids what was happening in the UK around satellite technology, and enabled them to have a live Q&A with Helen Sharman. And there were over 150,000 kids on that lesson. And the feedback from that was incredible, because it filled a gap that the teacher couldn't fill. It opened eyes to an experience that we physically couldn't take those kids to. And that's just one example. There are other organisations doing stuff. With coming back to technology, with virtual reality, augmented reality. There is so much that can be done to enhance that learning experience and experiential stuff. That doesn't necessarily mean you've got to throw kids onto a coach and take them somewhere for the day to inspire them.
Yeah.
So I don't know all the answers, but people like I'm going to big you up now, Aaron, but what you and Ben are doing is immense in terms of your impact on schools and opening kids' eyes up to what fun engineering is, and we need more of you. So on that practical side, we need technology to be all pervasive. So there's another issue about what schools have got. Some have barely got any Wi-Fi, let alone devices, and there's a whole a whole heap of issues in this. But what we're trying to create is the platform to have these discussions, to see if what we can mobilize, what will come out of it, come back to it year on year, keep growing it. And it's in the north because there's a whole education community there that doesn't get to go to the other large scale events because they all happen in London, the southeast primarily. So it's a big new market opportunity for a lot of edtech companies. But importantly, it's also, as I say, I'll come back to that word platform. It's a platform for new collaborations, new ideas, new partnerships to be formed. And the best place for that to happen is in the room, in person.
So you spoke. Sorry, Aaron. You spoke a little bit about the world of work and education, and often education is referred to as kind of like a factory line, getting students ready for work, or kind of simplified down to that. Clearly, from what you're saying and what things like the World Economic Forum are saying, it's just not doing that. So what are the real skills that you, working with edtech companies or working with industry, that are saying like, we really need to do this, like we need to do this like now rather than later?
Well, we'll probably be able to answer this better a week on Wednesday, a day after the event, because hopefully we're going to capture a lot of this content and make it available afterwards. And I think I referred to it before. It's less about qualifications per se, and it's more about if you give me someone who's really keen to learn, then industry can teach them what they need to be able to do the job.
They need
but
the skills.
that love of learning, what inspires that?
Yeah.
What inspires that innate love? That innate need for kids to think, actually, I want to discover more about this. I want, that's a toughie. Because lots of kids get into this production line of 9 till 4:30 or whatever it was, and geography, then history, then biology, and then it's
there are questions like that. You don't do like a little bit of something for 45 minutes and do something else. No. It's just everything all at once, and you need to be able to see the multiple aspects of a problem and pull on. Like, you've got to rely on it. Ultimately, if you can't solve a problem, you've got an underlying set of skills that can kind of allow you to see through that process or make you kind of work the way through that.
I believe so. And that's what we're hearing from industry. And the other thing about it's adaptability as well. People going to work now will probably still be in work when they're 85 because they're living longer. They're healthier, and over the course of that much longer working life, they will probably change careers 3, 4, 5 times. Because they'll get bored. And so and there's no such thing as a job for life anymore, unless you're an artist or a creative. But in terms of the world of work, you don't want to spend 20 years doing one thing and then realize I've got another 60 of these to put up with.
I feel like that with teaching sometimes. I think I'm 70 years in already, and I've still got another 50 to go. But, so everything you've said so far, it feels a lot like you said the main word we sort of come back to is that collaboration. So do you really think that is the holy trinity? Is tech, we've spoken about, industry coming together, and then education, all sort of aligned for the betterment of kids and to get them ready for that sort of world of work or whatever they want to go into, those 4 or 5 careers they potentially go in? Are you more worried about sort of, like you said, that skills, but you're sort of saying that collaboration, that is the trifecta, that's the holy grail as such, is it?
Well, it's a starting point for it, because within industry you could expand that to say, well, you need to include the third sector in here, because so much of education is propped up and supported by charities and not-for-profits. And there are lots of very small organisations doing really great things on a local level, and they're as much a part of this dialogue as anyone. And then, of course, you've got what the government are doing, the Department of Education, and what they think their priorities are, and what they're allowing funding to achieve. And talk with funding. The other thing is money. Where's who's going to pay for if, for example, someone said, well, every kid needs a device, their own device, and every school needs to have broadband. Who pays for that? Tricky one.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Is that there is no straight answer. And like I said, I suppose as someone who is also a lover of the idea of education and industry coming together, because I mean, that's what I built our business on. Like you said, you mentioned earlier, me and Ben, who's a engineer previously at Dyson, now works for himself, and now we work together. I think it's incredibly important, like I said, that connection and where it comes from, and how it sort of helps everybody grow. Like you said, we are big believers of rising tides raise all ships. And like you said, it shouldn't be this sort of separatist groups of said they use it own. So for instance, again, schools may not be aware, but businesses will have like a charity arm, and they will have a certain amount of tax write-offs and funds. So there is money out there, like I said, that companies would like to do stuff with. And like I said, that's charities, but also education, and they can use it sort of that way. And I think there's a lot of stuff that people aren't in education, they're not aware of these sort of things, and actually how much of a support industry or business or even small local businesses. I mean, our DT department, we work with our local Chamber of Commerce, and they provide us with supplies because they're a small to medium-sized business, and they're able to give us supplies because that's what they can do and they're willing to do. So maybe, like I said, it's about creating those links of looking at what's around you and pulling on those existing resources.
Yeah, Aaron, that's a really good point about. So I'm aware of lots of very big industry players who create a real wealth of STEM resources, in particular, that are curriculum aligned, really professionally produced, and teachers don't know about it at all. There's too much information out there, and there's no real proper distribution network for this type of content. And you mentioned sort of ESG. Is it ESG? Environmental, so is it ESG?
I tell you what, I've got to admit, I can't remember what it's called. I just remember saying it's I call it their charity money. I know the big companies, they've got some charity money they can get for a tax write-off, and I go, give me that. That's what I'm after.
Okay. So it's not just charity; it is self-interest. So there are very large organisations who put a lot of money into, for example, STEM resources for teachers, and then do something silly like say, well, actually, this is cordoned off for only the kids in Cumbria because they've got a major, the head office is in Cumbria, for example. And so they might do more. They'll do more work in Cumbria, and think, job done. We've hit our environmental target, our social target, and there's a disconnect between those resources and who needs them. And clearly, it's not. I don't know why I picked on Cumbria, but it's not just the kids in Cumbria. It's the valuable resources that teachers should be able to connect with and be aware of, and use. And so that's another strand really of what Brilliant can do is to find those companies and say, listen, if you're serious about that long-term problem of the skills gap, to the extent that you're producing STEM resources that a teacher can use in a primary school and will help alleviate the issue about there's not enough science teachers or whatever, then let us help you connect you with thousands of schools. So they can see this stuff, they can try it, they can use it, and you can get proper feedback from the kids as to its value, and you can keep adapting it, and you can start inspiring those kids who one day will be running your company.
Yeah, no, I love that. We're going to move on slightly, and I've got this question that I kind of want to ask, and I hope you answer, but it's completely up to you, because you touched on it there that you've worked with lots of many different businesses you work with, and you've approached small-time businesses like me and Inventor Club, me and Ben. You've spoken to sort of individuals like Matt and so on, and then also huge, great big companies as well. Who's been the easiest and the hardest to work with? That's what I want to know. Who's been the ones that are a bit more free and willing with their money and their sponsorship and so on? Or, like I said, who in your experience has been for sort of the teachers, educators, leaders, and so on? Who are the good guys that you've dealt with, and potentially some of the not so willing ones, if you're willing to name them? Get some goss.
Get some goss. So I would have to give a shout out, if you like, to companies like Vex Robotics. And Class VR in particular, who recognised Brilliant as an opportunity very early on, and got on board. So they saw it for the opportunity it is, and it's been fantastic to have them along for the whole ride, if you like. Some very large companies who you'd have thought their pockets are so deep, this is short change for them. This should be easy. Structurally, it's very difficult to get them to move quickly. So whilst there might be, really good conversations about they love the event, it looks great, it's the sort of platform they want to be involved in, but it's not in our quarterly budgets for this year. We wouldn't invest in it anyway. What we want to do is see it happen first. And if we like it in real life, then we'll be involved in the second year. And I'm saying, well, okay, well, if everyone takes that approach, there won't be a second year, will there? Because, but there's enough people who recognise, and the other differentiator, and I challenge companies on this, is if you're an ed tech and you truly believe that your education technology is going to improve the effectiveness of teachers and improve learning outcomes, and it's a good thing. Why are you waiting another 12 months to tell teachers about it? Why would you do that?
As you said, it seems strange. Like if they're all saying we need kids with these skills, we want to work more with schools, but we want to wait 12 months to see if something's going to work. It just seems counterproductive in the cycle.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. I alluded to this earlier. Sort of working in more traditional tech sectors like e-commerce, for example. E-commerce is really fast moving, and people want to take advantage straight away. And if they see an opportunity to find new clients, they're on it. If they want to sell more products, they're on it straight away. In education, I think a lot of education companies are actually run by people who've come from education, and they're a bit more conservative. They're a bit more risk averse. And it just seems to take forever for people to make their mind up about stuff, when I'm sitting here naively saying, I thought your stuff was important, that it needed to be in schools, that you need every teacher to know about this, every school to know about this, every MAT to put it across all of their schools. What are you waiting for? That's
a really interesting point of that. Like you said, I hadn't necessarily thought about that about an educator or someone, like I said, a leader, but teacher, whoever, going out of education into business, like I said, and them having a different mentality actually towards it. Like you said, because if you were brought up in the mean streets of London, Wall Street, you're going to have a very different mentality and strategy wise compared to someone who's come from a school and that kind of environment, aren't you, actually? So very good point. I suppose actually, and this is completely off the cuff as well, Matthew, have you had the same? Because obviously you've got AI education coming up in February. You're also dealing with a lot of companies.
And I think the same for the first year, because I tried to put the event on way too quickly. I thought it was going to be way easier than it was the first time. I thought I could do it in like 2 months and it'll be fine. Like a Field of Dreams kind of, I'm going to build it and people will come kind of scenario. But yeah, the first year was tough. This year has been better, but it's been better because like people who spoke last year have then gone and said to other people they enjoyed the event and they happen to run an edtech company. That person's speaking again this year, so they are happy to get. It's been more like now I've got some connections within the field, but before I was like just a guy on LinkedIn sending random requests for an event that they never heard of in like Eastern Europe. So it was a bit of a pitch. But this year it's been a lot easier, but mainly because of connections and probably people that we all met at EduFuturist, but meeting people there, chatting to them and like showing them my face and showing them what it was about and showing them I cared about this and this is something that I think is really cool, and talking face to face about the reasons why I'm doing it and how excited I am about it. And like that kind of also, that human connection side of it sells it a lot more than like, and this is the difficulty. Well, you have to know somebody. If you know somebody, you can get somewhere. Usually going like info at or help desk at is not going to get
That's
you
a
anywhere.
really good
If it
point.
goes into a bin somewhere, you have to know somebody to start. That's a problem as well.
It's like tech companies don't have any people anymore.
There's nothing. If you go scroll their
They
websites
do
on
not want you to
contact us,
contact
there's
them.
nothing.
Yeah, they're mental. It's it's an endless frustration. How do you find this person? And I'm being a bit harsh here, but the job of a marketeer, for instance, in an edtech company, is to make themselves fully aware of all the opportunities across their patch. So if it's the UK, they should know this is what's happening every month of the year in different parts of the country, and then start assessing how does that match against our marketing strategy? Where should we be? Where should we send our people? Where should we be? And you try and reach out to these people to say, I want you to know about this. That's all. I just want you to know about this, so it's on your calendar, whatever. And they don't engage. They don't respond. They don't accept your LinkedIn requests.
Mine's the quarterly thing as well. Mine's like last year I was missing everyone's quarter, and then like last year I was missing everyone's review when I started to plan in November, and then I started to plan in like March this year, and I was still missing it. So I'm like, when's the slot? When can I talk to you?
They're all excuses. I mean, they're handy things to fall back on at the end of the day. If they weren't prepared, they're not going to admit that. If they didn't know about it and it's their job to know about it, they're not going to admit that. If, however, they do have budget and it's the last minute, that should be their incentive to get involved.
Because you've mentioned before, like you said, you're not a small conference. You're not, like I said, a startup. This isn't sort of your first, second year, or however long you've been doing it for. But equally, like you said, you're not a huge behemoth like Bet. And you've said actually that's probably the dangerous ground to be in for that reason of you're sort of caught between being sort of this one-man band with a couple of a small team trying to get small companies on or startups in there and sort of bring teachers along and so on. So how does that sort of vibe? Why do you think that's more important to keep it that size or around that way so it has a different vibe to say a Bet? And is that more important and it brings its different kind of character and so on with it?
I'm not even going to compare Brilliant to Bet. It's better than Bet, but it's a different thing. I think Bet is a great thing. I love the fact it's been going 30 years, has 30,000 people go to it. It's across 4 big halls. It's got big international audience. It's a good thing. But 80% of their audience are from London and the Southeast. So that education community where I live up in the Northwest, they're not there. They're not going to those talks or playing with that tech or whatever, networking. So I want to create that for them here in Liverpool. And Bet gets criticised for it becoming a bit more like Costco. It's for tech. People go there to buy tech, and we're much more about that's one part of the jigsaw puzzle. It's tech, but it's also industry and those conversations and educators. How do these things work together to improve learning? So the kid is at the center of this, the child, and our route to them is through inspiring teachers. So I'm very happy that I think about nearly 40% of our audience will be teachers in the classroom who never normally get the opportunity to meet Grace from Google or Jade from Canva or whoever it is. They don't get to meet them only because, and it's not Google's fault or Canva's fault, because there hasn't been an event in the Northwest that they could be at until Brilliant. So I'm not competing with Bet. It's a different time of year, different geography, to an audience that doesn't even go to Bet, but still needs to learn new things, to have some CPD, to get inspired, to network, play with tech.
There's a thing as well, like getting all those teachers together who maybe want to start to explore technology, or maybe you're already using it. Maybe you've got one random teacher who found the thing from Cumbria who wants to talk to everyone about this cool resource they found. And I think teachers trust teachers. Like, That's why on LinkedIn and platforms like that, people demo cool things that they figured out they can do with tech. And then you're like, oh yeah, it's really cool. I could try that as well. And I think that ripple effect is what we need more of.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you do. I'm no AI expert. You are, Matthew, and I'm loving the output I can see online. But I guarantee you, after your talk at Brilliant, there'll be so many more teachers who want to engage and talk to you more about that and access your resources, and it will rapidly accelerate.
And that's what it's all about, really.
In one talk, how many people are aware of that as a resource and how useful it could be for them.
And that's been the super nice thing since I joined like the LinkedIn community, let's call it, and like met people in this edtech bubble. It's such like a friendly, opening, welcoming bubble of people who just want to share cool ideas that can help people. And that's kind of what I would like to do hopefully at Brilliant, is like show people that there's cool stuff you can do that's relatively easy, that will make your life easier and improve the classroom experience for the kids as well. And I think that's probably what your exhibitors are coming with. I know that's what Aaron and Ben will be there with. And like everyone's doing this from such a good place. And we just want to help. I think everyone's in it. Everyone's in it for the team, I suppose.
That's the thing. Going back to the question you asked Aaron earlier about name the goodies and the baddies. A consistent thread of every organisation that's involved in this is that they've been inspired to be part of it and they want to contribute. And it is about a commercial opportunity, but if that's the only metric an edtech company is measuring itself by, then they've gone astray. It should always come back down to are we adding value to the community we provide services to?
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. And I remember that the similar feel I had with that, and like I said, we wanted to be a part of Brilliant, me and Ben. It was a case of we love the message. Like I said, we love the idea of the student really being at the centre, and this is about bringing the correct people together for collaboration. And I think that only other time I really felt that was when we were all there. We all went to the Edu Futurist Awards. And it was a mix of, like I said, half and half in the room of people from industry and business. There was people from Text Help there. There was Paddy. There was Canopy, Canva. There was so many sort of companies that were available. And this was, like I said, then it was just a person, a representative, whoever from whatever business they come from. But there was still a lot of teachers and leaders and colleges and everyone together to actually have a drink, have a chat, celebrate the work of others, as well as then actually get a chance to really bend the ear with some of these people and sort of talk about your bugbears a little bit, talk about what the opportunities are. And all of a sudden, like I said, it become a little bit more personal. You felt a little bit closer to actually potentially using one of those services or so on, because you got more of an idea behind it, and you went, actually, yeah, they're trying. I see where they're coming from now, instead of it always being a salesperson and a demo, because otherwise that's sort of the connection that teachers are left with, is you just get that sales guy, that marketing guy or whatever on a video call, and they do a demo now because they don't come in, they don't have to anymore, and they only do the training, a lot of them, these companies, particularly the bigger ones, because it's easier just to do it online and work remote. So like I said, that's, I think, exactly what you were saying there. It's really important for events like this to keep that soul within them and sort of share that and have teachers come along and experience that, isn't it?
I believe so. That's my...
So from speaking to all of these companies, big and small, have you, and kind of what they spoke about, what they want to get out of the festival, and all the speakers as well, what they're going to bring, have you kind of felt any form of trend or any form of like key piece of tech that people are like talking about that you think might be like a current that flows through Brilliant, or is it kind of, there's lots of cool little things that we should look out for?
There are lots of cool little things you should look out for. Some really young companies doing what I think are really exciting things. People like Campus XR, a company called Team Repair. These are tiny companies, but they're doing great things in tech and education. AI, of course, is rampant. We're going to have AI filtered water and AI coat hooks and toilet roll dispensers. We're not, but
I wouldn't put it past someone.
But clearly AI, it's not an elephant in the room. It's the thing that we all need to get to grips with very quickly. So that there is a lot of that, but there's also lots of really cool creative stuff. So there's people like Nick Corsten, who runs an organization called Steam Co, and he goes around the country in what he calls his Starship, and he makes ludicrous things out of cardboard. He launches dynamite powered rockets. He's a complete individual, but he really excites kids about science, technology, engineering, arts, maths, or creativity. That's his big thing, is creativity. He'll be there. We've got a woman called Emma Rogers, who's a sculptor, and she'll be doing a live piece in the room. And a lot of her work in sculpting bleeds into science, technology, engineering, and maths. It will become clearer when you see her on the day. And we want to build on that. We want this event to be as much about creativity as it is about technology, as it is about engineering, as it is about mathematics, and for each of that to be, the platform for these subjects to be presented in a really exciting, engaging way that get people excited and interested.
I think our last question was going to be kind of what do you hope or want the legacy of Brilliant to be? But I think you sort of the past couple of questions, we've really touched on a lot of that. But I suppose, can you sort of just sum that up for us? What you think the legacy or want the legacy of Brilliant to be?
By legacy, you mean when it doesn't exist anymore and people will look back and...
No, like I said, what it's known for.
We read the history books about the Brilliant Festival.
Yeah. And it's ongoing. It's already in its 30th year, and it's still going strong. And people know, like you said, it's what do you want it to be known for?
It's about inspiring the next generation for the world of work, whatever that morphs into, whatever that changes into, and making sure that we're preparing our kids from the youngest age to help look after this planet much better than we've been doing, and have better lives and longer lives and healthier lives, and be more productive, have more fun and leisure time, because they've got the skills to get the most out of their life. And if we can play a small part in that, great. If we can make a bigger impact by running Brilliant in some other locations at the same time, if we could do stuff that actively engages schools across the country where we have brilliant creations made every year, or brilliant challenges met and achieved, or there's lots of different directions it could go in. I've already heard from people. I had an email the other day saying from a company saying, listen, we can't do this year. What we had considered was the big shows like yours and School Academy Show and BET, but we've decided to do some much smaller shows, but please count us in for next year. And that was the first time I'd heard someone say, you're one of the big shows, like BET, Schools Academy Show. And we haven't even put the thing on yet. So the perception of it being a large-scale event is seeping through. And so I want this event to carry on for years to come here in Liverpool. This is its home. And I want the city region really to start being proud of the fact that there's an event that is going to really start looking after the aspirations of our youngest, ahead of any other region in the UK. It's a great positioning piece for a city to say, actually, we care so much about the future of our region. We're investing in our kids from the youngest age to make sure that they're ready for the new world of work, and that they'll continue to survive and thrive up here in the Northwest. Don't know, you caught me on the hop with that one, legacy. I can't get past a week on Tuesday at the moment.
No, like I said, I think you touched on quite a few things already. So like I said, it just that wrapped it all up quite nicely. Now, we're not going to go with our sort of usual quick fires. Matthew, did you want to go through the ones we've got from that point of view?
So, Apple or Android?
Apple.
Oh, that was quick. You've probably been the fastest guest so far, I think. Microsoft or Google?
Google.
ChatGPT, Gemini, or Claude?
ChatGPT. Then, if I'm not happy with it, I run it through Gemini.
And what would be your favorite piece of ed tech, or maybe if you were like your favourite piece of EdTech you maybe seen that we're going to see next week?
I don't think I can answer that one. Because there's so much I want to see myself next week. I'm not an educator, so I'm not steeped in this.
We put you on the hot seat there. I imagine there's like 200 things we're going to see next week, so it's hard to pick one out of that.
Yeah, there's. Yeah, I don't know. Sorry. Probably
that was a bit of a mean
Club.
question. Seems you're representing about 200 companies next week. So which one's your favourite out of these 200 people you were?
I was a bit mean. I did leave it in there just to see if you would
hung up to dry a bit there, Aaron.
No, not you. No, like I said, Martyn, because again, it's interesting, I think, to see from other point of views. Because again, a lot of people within education would say that VR doesn't have any kind of place, or I don't know what I would use it for. But again, industry see it as actually a little bit stronger than what other people will. So it's quite nice to see it from and hear from other people's point of view. So again, not to trip you up, but to hopefully open people's minds a little bit to other opportunities.
Yeah, there's one of the stands is being run by a project called Resilience, which is backed by the pharmaceutical industry, and is about getting children interested in the world of medicine. And one of the issues that pharmaceutical companies have got is that they can't have loads of school kids rummaging around laboratories, poking their noses into, all that happens in those sterile environments. So they've created a load of virtual reality resources, and there'll be a big stand at Brilliant where teachers will be able to go and see how kids are going to be, or how anyone can be inspired and learn more about what life is like in medicine. I'm explaining this really badly because
no, it sounds really cool though.
Oh, it does sound cool.
It is really cool, and there are so many practical applications for VR. It's not just all fun and games. Although there will be fun and games because we've got a load of esports stuff happening, which I'm really excited about. There's something really for everyone: AI, esports, engineering, lots of creativity, lots of networking, a few drinks afterwards.
Absolutely. Perfect. And like I said, that is all coming literally within, when this releases, about a week's time. So give us the date, sorry, Martyn, just so I don't say it wrong.
October the 15th.
October 15th, up in Liverpool. And yeah, like I said, it's free to educators. Please do.
It's free to everyone. It's free to attend.
Free to attend. Absolutely. Get yourself along. Come on down. It genuinely is going to be a great event. All three of us are going to be there, as well as a whole host of other awesome, like I said, if you're in the LinkedIn community, if you've sort of seen a lot of the people in our networks, they're all mostly going to be there as well. So it's going to be such a really good event to get everyone together. And like I said, up in the north and spread the love up there, which I do like to do, and get away from the smog down here in the south.
Well, can't wait to see you both again in person. Thank you very much for this today. Very much enjoyed it. Hope it was.
No, thank you for joining us. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm going early. I'm going to fly to Stoke I'm going to visit my parents beforehand. So I've snuck in a little family trip on the way.
Good.
Superb. Right. Thank you so much for coming on, Martyn. It's a pleasure. And I look forward to seeing you and hopefully everyone else next week.
Thanks,
guys. Thank you.